Hey, you know, there's something that has been lacking from Half the Battle. There just hasn't been enough Deke. And that's partially my fault. Because, well, I couldn't find any Deke. I've been looking all over for some Deke, but it was all for naught. No matter how desperate I was, I just couldn't get any Deke. That's all changed though. I finally managed to get my hands on some Deke. In fact, I found lots of Deke. So, these past few weeks, I've been going through all the Deke I could stand. Because I know that a lot of you have been waiting for me to show you some Deke. So, I'm happy to announce that in the coming year, I'll share my Deke with all of you. I have no idea what a double entendre is. I'm not French.
But in all seriousness, yes, I got my hands on the G.I. Joe cartoon series that came after the more well-known Sunbow run ended. This series was made by Deke, and we'll start looking into this horrible series in the coming year.
We can now return to our regularly scheduled Half the Battle episode. Penis. Hey, welcome to Half the Battle. Today we're taking a look at a Joe that isn't actually a member of the Joe team, technically.
Things get international as we discuss Big Bear. We start, as always, with his first figure. Released in 1992 with all original body parts, you can immediately tell this guy isn't a real American hero. He's a Russian soldier on loan to the Joe team from their Russian equivalent, the October Guard. The figure itself looks pretty much exactly what you'd expect a stereotypical Russian soldier to look like. While it's nice to see a Russian as part of the Joe team, the figure itself is sorta bland, and like I said, stereotypical. His accessories aren't much to write home about either. A fairly standard backpack, a missile launcher, and an assault rifle. Though it has to be said, the rifle is appropriate, as it's a Kalashnikov. Though not the iconic one everybody knows. This one is an AKS-74U. Big Bear only got one more figure just a year later, but it wasn't available in stores. This toy was part of a mail-in exclusive set called the International Action Force. It consisted of Spirit, representing America, Big Ben, representing the United Kingdom, Big Bear, and Budo, representing Japan, even though Budo is from Sacramento. This figure itself is just a repaint with all the green color replaced with black. It doesn't help to alleviate the blandness. The mold for the Big Bear figure was used one more time in 1998 to make Lieutenant Gorky, an established character of the October Guard that looks nothing like Big Bear in the comics. And so the blandness of this figure continues.
So let's move on to the file card, see if it's any less bland. Hey, this guy comes with a motto. You G.I. Joes, airborne troops afraid to fall without parachutes. No guts!
So, this guy likes to jump out of airplanes without a parachute?
Dude, that isn't having guts. That's having your guts splattered all over the ground.
Anyway, the place where he grew up was cold, wet, and nasty.
So he's Scottish then?
What? It's not like he'd be the first Scottish Russian. This made him a mean and gruff character. His main gripe is when people refer to the October Guard as the Russians' counterpart to G.I. Joe. He likes to assure everybody that G.I. Joe is just a knockoff of their team. You know, given his general disposition and build, I feel pretty confident in saying that this guy was supposed to be an updated version of Horror Show, one of the original members of the October Guard. They probably didn't name him Horror Show because, well, that character was created by Marvel, but much more importantly, he was very much dead at that point in comic continuity. There is some evidence to support this, as an earlier name considered for Horrorshow was Big Bear, and he gets called this in the cartoon by Gung Ho.
There'll be another time, you dumb Russian bear.
His second file card isn't actually his.
The 4 members of the International Action Force only got 1 file card between them. This card clarifies that Cobra's threat has become so great that the nations of the world have come together to stop the evil organization. This whole team is actually a nice homage to the Action Force toy line. Action Force was the name used for the earlier G.I. Joe toys in the United Kingdom and some parts of Europe, with the file cards being changed so the Joe birthplaces were set in various European countries instead of the United States. This would explain why Budo is from Japan all of a sudden.
Or maybe I'm giving Hasbro a little too much credit on that one.
Another interesting thing is that Big Bear went from being an air assault specialist on the first file card to an anti-armor specialist on the second one. But considering he apparently didn't believe in the need of parachutes, I can understand why they transferred him.
We can skip the comic section this time because, well, Big Bear didn't actually appear in the comics.
This character came out too late to be in the Sunbow cartoon series, but he did have a few appearances in the Deke Show. We see him in Shunnel, an episode where Cobra kidnaps the Queen of England, because of course they do, and Keyboard Warriors, a huge War Games ripoff. His personality is... he's Russian. That's about it. Oh, and he plays chess, because in those days the only Russians anybody knew were Gorbachev and Kasparov. Well, and Stalin, I suppose, but nobody really wants to emulate that guy.
Certain douchebags notwithstanding.
In conclusion, this guy has blandness written all over him. Bland toys, bland cartoon appearance, and I wish we could have gotten a real Horrorshow figure in the original line. All in all, it's not really a bad toy or a bad character, it's just meh.
See you next week, everybody.
And you bollocks it up good, you did.
I've been going through as much Deke as I could stand. And I'm happy to say... bollocks. Deke and bollocks. This should be weird.